but it's got 4 doors. Yeah, it's a 4-door.
Wow!
Yep, this is a pretty cool old car. Don't really have a good place to get this thing up in the air, but I do have a berm on the side of the property, so I kind of put one side up it on there so I can get up underneath the car. And heck, looks like I got a pinion seal leaking. Yep, after taking an old car that's been sitting up for so long and putting it back in service, everything starts to show. Yep, everything starts to wear out. All the weak stuff starts to show up. But man, this is actually a pretty good old car for coming up north. Got coil springs in the back. And, you know, it's got surface rust and things like that, but there is actually no rot in this car, considering that it came from the Northeast where they salt the roads. I mean, look at underneath. It's actually really clean, considering this thing is 55 years old and it's spent its life up in the Northeast. I think it was purchased in Connecticut, and then I think the last owner was in Massachusetts. But yeah, not too bad. Most of that stuff is some kind of an undercoating that's just peeling off, but that's not rust. I was actually pretty surprised, because I bought this car while I was still overseas. Bought this car, saw a bunch of pictures online, and then I called the rep that was trying to sell it, super guy, and I was asking a lot of questions. He says, you know what, you'd probably be better off talking to the owner. So he gave me his number, and I called and talked to that man, and he was another super guy. Super guy. See if I can turn the lights on, get a little bit of... This is up around the gas tank in the back. You know, typical surface rust and things like that, but you know, there's no rot or anything. Looks like the shock's probably been replaced at some point in its life. And it rides kind of like it needs new shocks. Yep. I am going to see if I can slip around to the front and get some other shots. This car is so low to the ground, and I don't really have a lot of... Well, actually, I don't really have any other options. This might be the best place for me to get. But I see some wet, some oil, and I'm kind of thinking, where would that be coming from? Yeah, where would that be coming from? It's so far back. And why would it be dripping right there? I guess that rear seal on that transmission is leaking, because it's wet back here. Boy, there is not much room under here. seal on that transmission leaking. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I got a rear main seal leaking also. And none of this was leaking when I first bought it. But, you know, 55-year-old seal, and then you start putting it back into service and under stress, and then it just starts to give out. Yeah, it's wet. I got, I think, a rear main seal, but if I'm not mistaken, you know what? I don't really see a lot coming from that. From that, well, yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, I think I got a rear main seal and I got a transmission leaking. Oh yeah, that transmission's too wet in front of that, so the old rear main is kind of giving out. But you know, like I said, surface rust, but there is absolutely no rot. Underneath this floor looks actually really good. Really good. That's the rear of the section of the frame. Yep, actually really, really clean, considering where it came from. Boy, as skinny as I am, I still can't get up under here. I thought there was more room than that. Actually, the hoses don't feel that bad. I actually have brand new hoses, 4 new wheel seals, a master cylinder, brake shoes, front and back, and all the spring hardware. And actually a new set of shocks. Actually a new set of shocks also. Golly, this frame and this rear end and everything is pretty clean. No rot or corrosion or anything. Yep, none. Pretty surprising. Dang, I can't get out from underneath this thing. Yeah, pretty surprised. Pleasantly surprised. Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna pull this old car down on level ground again. Kind of do a walk around, kind of show you all the in and out and inside the trunk and under the hood and inside the car. And this is by no means a show car, but it is definitely a really clean car considering that it's all original. I was actually surprised that that old truck had as many views and as many comments, and I'm grateful too. I'm grateful for anybody that's subscribed so far, anybody that's watched it, anybody that's took the time to comment. I'm truly grateful. Even though it had a 256 cylinder in it, I thought, man, maybe if people are actually interested in that, they might be curious about this, my daily driver, up until about a week and a half ago. I bought this car before I came back home from overseas, and I bought it offline. It was actually listed with one of those consignment companies. Talked to that guy. I was interested, and then I was asking him a lot of detailed questions, so he put me in touch with the owner, and I spoke with him for 2 or 3 different times, probably for, shoot, I wouldn't be surprised if I actually talked to him for an hour or two. and the car, it just sounded like something that I was interested in. It's supposedly, this is an all original 1967 Chevelle Malibu, and I think that there's a few places on it that the paint has been touched up, but I think for the most part it's the original paint. Definitely not a show car, but very presentable for a 55-year-old vehicle. And I've driven this thing from Texas Gulf Coast all the way up into the North Middle East. This thing has proven itself to be reliable and bulletproof. So I thought I would actually just do a little walk around of this vehicle, and who knows, you might have somebody that's interested in checking it out. Yep, like I said, the paint on this thing is by no means perfect. It's definitely got some parking lot dings and scratches and things like that, but considering that this paint has been on the car for its entire life, I think it's definitely cleans up pretty well. Definitely cleans up pretty well. Yep. And even the interior is actually all original. This was the Malibu package. It didn't have many options. I think the 230 was the standard motor, and this one has the 250, and I believe it came with optional Malibu package, which I think had to do with the upgraded seats and the interior. And it had, I believe, optional seat belts, because I don't think they were standard equipment back in 1967. They were an option. And actually, you could have gotten shoulder belts, but this one didn't come with those. But I think somewhere on here, it still has the, I know the back seats do. It even has the date code on there. 1967. Boy, the glare of the sun right now is bad. It's low in the sky. But this is all original interior. Yeah, I got a neighbor that I'm grateful to have. He's over here mowing my grass. I just kind of wish he wasn't mowing it right now while I was trying to do a video, since the sound quality on this thing is pretty poor. But when someone's doing you a favor, you can't really be upset about it. One thing I did notice, I'm not sure what to do with the paint, and I'm going to try to get a view. Looks like somebody had a little carburetor fire at one point. The paint took a little bit of heat. See those streaks? That wasn't there when I got the car, but something that they put into the washer tank, the paint didn't like, because I had to use them on the way up here when I drove from Texas. And those were there when I got here, and they're on both sides, and they're just behind the washer nozzle. So something in there, whether it's alcohol based or something, but something the paint didn't like. I'm sure I can probably polish it off, but this car has definitely got some parking lot dings and whiskey den or two. But again, it's a solid car. It has some kind of an undercoating under there, but there is no rot. anywhere. You know, paint's chipped off from rocks and the like. But there's no rot. Rockers on this car are solid. Frame is solid. I mean, you can even look up inside the frame and there's no scale. There's no chunks of anything. There's no rust. I mean, it is truly amazing that this car made it as long as it did with no corrosion. See? I mean, there's no rust. It's clean inside. Very clean. Original wheel covers. Got the little 250 cubic inch little emblem on it. You know, the chrome is still pretty presentable. Again, this thing hasn't been restored. This is a pretty original car. Bumper's in good shape. Doesn't look like it's ever really had any kind of damage. Original grill. Yeah, I couldn't pass it up. It was such a neat old car. And it drives like a dream. Considering that the suspension underneath this thing is 55-year-old technology, this thing really does ride nice. I mean, actually, it rides like you're on clouds. These aren't very big cars. These were considered mid-size back in the 60s. This wasn't a full-size vehicle. This was considered mid-size. I think the total weight on this car is just shy of 3,200 pounds, which even by today's standards, that's still pretty light. I think the overall length on this car is like 197 or 198 inches. Like I said, it's not a very big car. I mean, it's big, but it's not a boat. They had bigger vehicles. I believe the Impalas and were the larger cars. Maybe the glare is not so bad on this side. Yep, that's the original interior in it. Never been touched up, even the headliner. Yep, even the headliner on this thing. Didn't have any tears in it. No burn marks, no stains. Front seat, same way. There's no tears. Armrest on the door panels are about the only thing in the car that show any wear whatsoever. Just your body oils and sweat, just kind of discolored. Steering wheel doesn't have any cracks, which is unusual for a car of this period. The heat just got to them, and this one has zero cracks. The dash has zero cracks in it. Said the door panels. I'm not sure if you can see that, because I know I can't. Actually pretty nice. Pretty nice. And it's got the same motor that old, whoops, I might not be able to do this with one hand. Got the old bulletproof 250cc or 250 cubic inch Chevrolet. Look how easy it is to get to everything on these cars. So much room. And I don't believe that this car has ever had the motor out or anything major done to it, from what I've gathered from the previous owner. Again, no rot or corrosion. I mean, you have the typical surface rust and things like that. But it's all original. Now, I've seen evidence on a few places where it looks like the paint has been touched up, but it has never had a respray. And I don't see any evidence of rust except for in the trunk, and I'll show you that. And it was very small, and I'm sure that came from, even when these cars were new, they were notorious, those trunks, for taking on water and heavy rain. Then it works its way up underneath those those vinyl rubber mats, and then it just sits there, out of sight, out of mind, and then they just rust the floors out. But this one had, like I said, there's more rust on the air cleaner than just about anywhere else on the car. Still got the insulation in the hood. You know, there's surface rust. Again, there's no rot anywhere. Here in a minute we'll fire this thing up. It does have a couple of lifters that clatter, but I do have a set of new lifters that I'm tempted to put in. And I have, I think I already mentioned, I had the 4-wheel cylinders, brake shoes, sets front and back, spring hardware, and hoses and master cylinder and shocks. That as soon as I actually have a place with a concrete floor, I'm going to go ahead and, because I have a right rear wheel cylinder leaking. It's not bad, but, and I've never actually seen it happen, but it's enough that it must pull air in there, because master cylinder's never been dry. But I start having a low pedal, and when I bleed everything, the only air is in that right rear. So I guess as you let up off the pedal, it actually creates vacuum and it draws that fluid back, and those pistons are stuck, and it just pulls in just a tiny bit of air, because that's the only place it gets air, is in that right rear. It's not leaking bad, but it's enough that over a period of about 2 or 3 weeks, it'll draw enough air in that the pedal starts to go down, and you have to bleed it out of there, and then you can get a good firm pedal again. We'll fire this thing up, and then we'll take a peek in the trunk. Look at that steering wheel. I mean, it's like, and this marks right there, that discoloration, that wasn't there when I got it. It was me coming up here, and now with all this keep your hands clean, that type of stuff, I had alcohol, and I guess when my hands were still damp, I was touching the wheel. And after, because I drove for like 1,500 miles, and I drove straight through, but I got in and out of this car a million times, and it was just enough that it just discolored whatever was on the steering wheel. So that was my fault, along with the Long was right there. You know, I'd kind of spray that stuff on my hands, but I would hang them out the door and it would drip down. And boy, whatever it was in that hand cleaner discolored the paint. Yeah, this is all my receipts. Like I said, I drove for, felt like days. But typical stuff that you have in an old car with point ignition. I think there's a set of points and a condenser, and I think there was a rotor. I think that was a spare rotor, points, and a condenser. They were in the car already. And I think it's even got the original owner's manual on this car. Yeah, I don't think this had the warranty book in it that had the protector plate. I think that was already. At least I didn't see it, but I guess it's possible. Oh no. Oh my God, I've had this car for 3 months and didn't even know it. It actually has the protector plate. No, isn't that freaking cool? Now that is freaking cool. I did not even know that. Delivery date, January 18th, 1967. Holy crap, that car was sold in Pennsylvania. That's pretty, because the way I understood it, was sold in Connecticut. So I'm the 4th owner, so evidently it was sold in Pennsylvania, spent some time in Connecticut, then went to Massachusetts, then went to Texas, then came up to the Middle East, or Midwest. Pretty cool. I honestly can say that I did not even know that this was in there. First time I've seen it. It is so cool. So cool. I cannot believe that I've actually had this car for 3 or 4 months now, and I missed that. How I missed that, I have no idea. What else is in here that I missed? I thought the warranty thing was gone. No, that was... Yep. Actually, there's the old cigarette lighter. All right, got me $1. And this is mine. I did put that in there. I checked the water temperature on this thing since it only has an idiot gauge, or an idiot light. It doesn't have a gauge. So I checked the temperature just to make sure that this thing wasn't getting hot before I took off out of Texas. Man, I'm really stoked about that freaking warranty book. That's pretty cool. And since the seat's never been out of this thing, a lot of times the build sheets, the way I understand, they were stuffed up underneath one of the seats. So there's a possibility that the build sheet is still somewhere in this car, because it doesn't appear that the seats have ever been out. And I had thought about kind of digging around and see if I could find the build sheet on this thing. I just got to find the time to do that. And then somebody had a cam shield, 5 quarts of 10W40. Rear end lube, 85 weight, 85W40. Transmission, 85W40. Boy, you can tell these are people that actually took care of their car. They were pretty particular about keeping records. Yep. Damn it. Pretty particular. But I actually had to use the heater when I first got here because it was still a little cold, so the heater works. I haven't driven this thing in a couple of weeks, so I have to admit it's got a bit of a kind of a miss in it, but I think I haven't driven this car in a couple of weeks, so I have to admit it's got a bit of a miss in it. And even in the trunk, there was some spare parts, and there's a new old stock clock in a GM box that had never been installed. Got a little bit of a miss in it. I wouldn't say it's got a little bit more of a hesitation, kind of a stumble in it. I got to look at that, but I'm going to get the brakes and the shocks and go through the carburetor and install a fuel filter of some kind, either an inline or change out that little brass filter that's just before the carburetor. I might just put in the later models paper filters that actually fit in that spot, because these little needle and seats are so susceptible to trash, and you're dealing with a car that's 55 years old pulling out of a tank that's 55 years old, so corrosion and rust and little pieces and stuff, it doesn't take much to stop those little needles up. And then you got, you know, flooding issues and things like that, which I kind of think is a problem with this one. This one loads up really bad, and I've already cleaned the needle out once, so I got to install some type of filter in it. But I had to fix the horn when I first got it so I can get it inspected, and man, those old horns were loud. Original radio. Little ladies right there. I'm surprised it even picks it up that clear here in my little town, and I'm up underneath the big old maple tree. And then the heater on this thing. Put it on. Yep. Getting warm. Defroster. Yep, no air's coming out. Yep, pretty cool. Yeah, it's just got the idiot lights in this thing. Fuel gauge works. The supposedly the mileage on it was correct when I got it, and I think it had 68,000 on it when I got it. So I think I put on about 3,500 miles since I bought it. But I'll have to admit, the interior does kind of lead me to believe that it's possible that it had that many miles. But the pedals don't have a lot of wear, but enough where I think it's possible that it's rolled over once. But again, according to the reports that I got from the previous owner, this car had less than 100,000 on it. And I know for a fact it's never been stored outside, because dashes in these cars were so bad about cracking. And this one has no cracks, and it's original. Steering wheel, no cracks. Even the shifter knob, they split and fall off. no cracks. And you can't even buy replacement door handles that have the original maroon knob on them that I've ever seen. Now the maroon is kind of changed colors just from heat and age, and the sun, but even like the door lock buttons, the original colors, which is pretty rare. And as far as I know, I haven't seen any that you can generally have to paint them to match. I think you can get them like in black and you got to paint them to match. But they were the maroon, but they've kind of changed colors over the years. And again, like I said, the only wear really on the interior are these armrests, and that's just from your body oils and stuff, touching that thing all the time, and it just eats that vinyl up. But there's no tears anywhere, none. And even the rubbers, soft. The wipers for the window, the felts, are actually in pretty good shape. There is a little damage here on this driver's side, which I need to replace, even though this car doesn't sit outside overnight anymore. But the days you get caught out in the rain, you just don't want it filling up inside of the door with any more water than necessary. But the window felts, still actually pretty soft. And even the window rubbers on this outside of this window, they're actually pretty nice, and they're actually soft. Some of that seam sealer from the factory is starting to crack and things like that, but it hasn't started any rust yet. You know, and the chrome on these cars was bad about pitting. Again, minimal, not perfect by any means, but it still shines up pretty nice. Original side mirror, very minimal pitting. And last time it was inspected, or I should say, I guess that's the registration, 92. I'm not sure if you can hear that little tick. Now off idle, now it's idle a little bit too slow right now, I give it that. But just off idle, that tick goes away. But then even sometimes the ticks are a little bit louder. Sometimes the lifters, there's a couple of them that just don't always like to pump up. Like I said, I got a carburetor I think is loading up. Because normally it idles like a sewing machine, but I haven't driven this thing, and I've just pulled it out today. Yeah, it's loading up. That's alright, it's an easy fix. I just got to install a fuel filter and clean that needle and seat out again. Fuel level gets too high and then it spills over and it just kind of starts flooding the motor. Yep. By no means a show car. But you know what? This thing has already taken me so many places. I have been across, I don't know how many states in this thing, and driven across most of them. And since I've been here, I've driven a couple, 200 or 300 miles in a day. And never once did this thing ever let me down. Only issue I had was on the way up here, I had a flat tire. I picked up a nail when I pulled into a parking lot. Spare tire and jack. Oh yeah, we didn't actually check out the trunk. We didn't check out the trunk. Still got the original mat. Of course, the mat's got some tears in it. They actually don't show up. But if you see right here, you know it's torn. But it's not actually not that noticeable. It lays down pretty flat. But here is where I found the rust. I'm trying not to tear on this thing because it's so brittle. See right there? And that came from the trunk seals leaking. Actually, there was a little bit of water under it today, so I pulled the mat out and dried the trunk out and let the mat dry underneath before I put it back in. But now the car stays parked inside at night. But there's a place right here, and there's another place on the opposite side in the same location. It's a patch about that size underneath that spare tire. Yep. And actually it had the original splatter paint in it, and for some reason the owner was touching stuff up when he was getting ready to sell it, and he kind of shot it with satin black, which it looks okay, but the old original splatter paint was much more attractive. So you can see some remnants of it right there. That was the original coating on the inside of the car. And then it's got some kind of a patch on the wiring. And I hate when people do ghetto repairs. It does not take a minute to fix things correctly. Doing this kind of stuff is just a future for a problem. Not only that, it just looks horrible. I just now noticed that. I don't think I've seen it before. Yeah, it takes 2 seconds to make a proper repair when you compare it to what it takes to run a new wire and splice it in with some those ghetto blue frickin' auto parts store connectors. These are junk. Do it right and do it once. But if you see, that's never been painted. Never. Still got the jack instructions up underneath the hood. Paint's still really shiny. And those bolts have never been off. You always see the little telltale signs that somebody's actually pulled this thing off, and this has never been off the car. And actually the seals on this thing they're still fairly soft. And from the pictures, I know how it was when I saw it. It looked like that was some kind of damage or corrosion. Actually, that's how it's made. These little ears fold over and they hold the seal. And another telltale sign, because most restorations, they don't go that far. Because if I'm not mistaken, these cars were built in multiple plants. And each plant was different, so they're not all the same. But when you shut the hood, or shut the trunk, you'll notice most of this normally is body color, and it looked odd because it doesn't match the taillight line. So some of the plants that were putting these things together had their own way of kind of blacking this out. So you'll see different ways, but normally most restorations, they don't go back and they don't go through the trouble of blacking that section out. But you can see where they just tape it off quickly and then they just shot some satin black or at that time. Because there's a lip there where it was taped off. Yep. Pretty clean. And how many spare parts came with this car? I even have new bezels. These are chrome. These are metal chrome pieces that are all, and I think I know for sure I have one side, and I think I have both. And I think I even have a new set of taillight lenses, new old stock ones. And then that's where you fill up your car. I have to admit, because the tank is so low and that filler neck is pretty low to the ground, this thing is such a pain in the butt to fill up. I guess I got a vent too on this thing that's plugged up, because it wants to belch fuel at you all the time. I hate filling this car up. I think it has a 20-gallon tank, but boy, when you start getting to the end, that thing keeps puking out gas at you. But it had the Malibu package, along with all the little scuffs and nicks and whiskey dents on it. But really and truly overall, it's kind of hard to knock this car. For being an original car, this thing right here is more than presentable. So guys, I hope y'all got something out of it. I know I love old cars, and man, I love talking about them. And I hope there's other people out there that can appreciate them too. And I want to say one more time, for everybody that's taking the time to watch these videos and comment, and anyone who's subscribed, thank y'all so much. It means the world. So this is it. It ain't much, but it gets me around. Y'all guys have a good one. Y'all take care, and stay tuned.